obviously, it's more than just the why. The why is apparent, I think, in many ways, but it's not necessarily easy to recruit military talent. I think a lot of that comes in with translating the skills into the workplace. For instance, with the Orion talent study we were just talking about, there's another stat there that says that this is the #1 challenge that military talent has when they enter the workforce, is matching their skills with what experience they should have in finding a job. So I think that kind of leads into how can employers make it easier for veterans and other military talent to match up their experience from the military into maybe a career path. Evan, you want to kick us off here?
Sure. There are many great resources out there to help with military translation, right, into civilian resume. But here's the factor is that I think what we're overlooking is, even when I worked in the space and we were working with big corporations and trying to figure out what are we missing, and what we overlooked was the job description itself and the types of job titles that we use. I would say even what we put in the job descriptions contribute to whether service members apply to it or not. And I think sometimes we rely too heavily on these platforms, but you still have to include language that resonates with the military community. And when you talk about job titles, there are some job titles in the marketplace that resonate better for veterans than others. Like for instance, like supply tech or field service tech. These are things they understand, warehouse managers, with logistics coordinator. When I saw a job once at a company, it was an HR analyst, but it was supposed to be a director of diversity and inclusion. Why was it labeled as HR analyst? And so why would anyone apply to that? So I think for those companies, and it's funny that Julie said, why are we still talking about this? It's because many companies still are struggling with this kind of stuff, so they invest in a lot of different resources, but sometimes you need to start from the inside out. And I think that using terminology in a job description, and if you need help with that, then if you have an ERG group or veterans, get a few veterans together and say, hey, we need help, with job descriptions for this particular field in the market, what is some language that would resonate well for people in this field, and sort of put that out there. Because recruiters are challenged already with trying to find the right talent, but then they have to work through this sort of system, right? That can be very complex, and we sort of lose that. Maybe by tweaking something on headline of a job title can make all the difference, for a service member or the company that's looking to recruit them.
I found that, just to keep it simple, that to focus on the work categories that probably make the most sense and build a plan around that. Once you get a whiff of the potential within these audiences, I think we can build a plan around that. And that's a good starting point. I think it's good to keep in mind that, what skill sets are gonna be a good match for your organization. Starting there, like I alluded to earlier, is probably the best way to indicate what the future might portend for us. I think some forget what we do in the military. We maintain stuff, we operate it, we repair it, we secure it, we destroy it. So it's good to keep that in mind when you're coming to us with software engineering roles, and pharmacists and things like that may not always find that coming out of the military or even in the veteran audience. And Evan, that's anecdotal, so you might want to weigh in that, or Julie, correct me where I might be off on that.
I really think that you guys you're spot on, because that is probably the biggest challenge. So you definitely need to spend time with your ERG and understanding what a person in the military does. And as a civilian, I had no level of understanding until I really saw what it takes to move through a job, to move through a rank. And as recruiters, we need to spend a little bit more time understanding what happens at the different levels of employment and that kind of thing in the military, so that we can be consciously thinking about how we include that in our job descriptions, how we help recruiters understand to uncover those skills or those leadership traits within an interview, so that they are being able to have those conversations and squirrel out the kind of gold that is within the opportunity when you're having that interview that you're just not comfortable with yet, I think.
Let me just chime in real quick. One of the best resources that our military community has is other people. And it's working through them and platforms like AliroVets that allows you to sort of refer people you know that you think would be great for this particular job. And this is why this technology is there, is to help people connect differently, but make it relevant, right? So if I know Jason, hey, I saw this opportunity here, not the best fit for me, but you were my buddy in the Marine Corps, and we did all this stuff together. I thought of you. I think you'd be a great fit knowing what I know. So I'm going to flip it over to you. And that's part of that ecosystem that, you know, we're all talking about in creating and cultivating here. But again, just remember that, you know, it's other people that can make a big difference for others that are looking for some help and knowing where to go.
No, that's completely spot on. And I think, you know, two or all three of you maybe mentioned ERGs, and I just want to make sure that everyone on the call knows what that means, and actually kind of goes into our next question. We're going to talk a little bit about an acronym, but ERG, Employee Resource Groups, is, you know, I would love for one of you to just chime in very quickly about, you know, what that looks like and make sure that the group understands kind of what we're talking about there.
Well, an employee resource group in my world is the Veterans Employee Resource Group, is a VERG. It's really about having a group of veterans that, you know, have a voice within the business to share ideas and concepts, you know, help with recruiting, help with governing, you know, opportunities for veterans as they come in, and, you know, kind of help the business engage better with the military community. That was one of the charges we had in different companies that I've represented, is an ERG is a great resource that you can leverage and task with duties like job descriptions. We need some help with some recruiting, or we need some assistance with, you know, trying to communicate or create events so that our veterans feel, you know, appreciated. So ERGs are important in more ways than one, but every company does leverage them in their own way. But at the end of the day, again, it's working with each other and creating an environment where they feel, you know, respected and valued.
Yeah.
So one thing that we talk to companies about with ERGs, both veteran and disability, is to make sure that you're giving people, employees, a reason to be a part of that organization. Veterans don't have to self-disclose. So when you're thinking about how you build your ERG, what's in it for them? And that can be a great bench that you create in terms of bringing high potential individuals in to make business impact and start to grow their career and be a part of that. So for us, the messaging isn't just about, hey, here's what you can do for the company. It's also, how do you grow within this organization by leveraging the veteran ERG?
Yeah, thank you guys for going on that tangent. I just wanted to make sure, because sometimes we use acronyms in our industry, and really all industries, and people don't necessarily know what they mean. So I wanted to make sure we hit on that very quickly, but it does lead into our next question. I think Evan, you maybe talked about this at the beginning there, but really, you know, speaking to the skill sets and what the candidates bring to the table is really key. And I think the idea of matching skills is where sometimes things get lost, and people, you know, want to look to MOC, MOS, Military Occupation Code, specialty, and how that correlates to a career path. And kind of on the same line of thinking, you know, how military experience is relevant to a specific career. So I want to go this route. I want Julie to start here and talk a little bit about the acronyms and just make sure that we kind of address that. But I know that Evan and Jason have really interesting points of view here as well, especially Jason kind of having a maybe different path than maybe would be expected from the military. So Julie, you want to kick us off on that one?
Sure. So I think I'm going to tell this story as a civilian to kind of give you all an example of how MOC and MOSs work. So my husband is an 11 Bravo. He was an enlisted infantry mechanic. At one point when he retired, he was a drill sergeant. My brother, on the other hand, is also an 11 Bravo. And he was airborne. He went to Farsi school. He worked in the transition office in HR for a while. And so for me, just typing 11 Bravo into any sort of system is not going to give me the full range of an impact of what each one of them went through in their military journey, and the very different skills and experiences that they bring to the table for employers now. And for me, it was just eye-opening. And Evan and Jason can definitely get more into the how you do that. But I think as a civilian, that's just one thing that we need to learn, that we have to get deeper than just expecting that a translator is going to solve all of our opportunities to find the right veteran. This is really about getting much deeper into what they did in the military and how they worked through their transition in their careers.
Yeah.
Evan?
Yeah, you know, on that, we also have to understand that not every service member that's leaving the military or had experience in, let's say, supply chain and logistics is interested in a career outside of the military doing that. And so what happens, where the challenge really comes in is, well, you know, they're working from strength, which is I did 10 years of this, but now I want to get into this role, which they really don't have a lot of exposure or experience to. And sometimes having that conversation where we talk about peer-to-peer, listen, I want to be very honest with you. I don't know if that's going to be the most successful route for you, because it'll be pretty much starting over. But they have to understand that that's a reality of it, to get them, you know, to either make the right decision in terms of, you know, what's the best track. But at the end of the day, when you're honest with them and just tell them, hey, you know, this is what I see in my experience, you know, work from strength, try to find something and then grow from within somehow. Like if you're in IT, work for an IT company, but you're trying to get into marketing, maybe there's a better way for you to go in that way than just going to a company saying, I want to do marketing, but I have no relevant experience. So that can be a challenge that I've seen, you know, when I was doing tabletop recruiting back in career fairs.
Yeah, good feedback. I think what that military experience taught us is, you know, how to learn and apply that experience to a number of like unique situations under like varying degrees of environments that we deal with. And so I encourage some to think about how that might apply to your organization. 53% of the people on average are getting out of the military with soft skill sets. And what I mean soft is they don't directly relate to a civilian job. And if you take that into consideration, you run into, you know, guys like me, I was just looking to be an asset to your organization, and I was willing to apply my ability to be flexible and nimble and operate in different environments under different levels of stress. And hey, take a shot on me, and I will give you your all. And I think that's a pretty common, you know, perspective that I see when people are transitioning out or in a career pivot. I think if you wrap that with some competent leadership and some upward or next step trajectory where they might go if they did their hard time for a year or two, getting their hands on the ropes, and then keeping an eye for camaraderie within your organization and teamwork, I think you probably got a winner there around a better solution to keep and retain this talent and help them get it better apply what they learned to deal with such a different bunch of nuances in the military and apply it to what your organization situations they're going to put them in. So I think it's some people might overthink that a bit.